I'm sorry, guys. My video got cut off. But anyway, my dad, we were talking about my dad making a video for Father's Day. Well, when I was a little girl, my dad sold Raleigh products. And so one of the things he sold was cough syrups, like home remedies. And me being a kid, I was always curious. And we had a shelf, but it was way up high where we couldn't get to it. But it had like all of these cough syrups and different things, like salves and stuff you put on your body. But somehow or another, I was able to get that bottle down. I don't know if I used a broom or whatever, but I got the bottle down and I took a swig of the cough syrup. And I loved it. I thought, this tastes like maple syrup or honey. Well, one morning my dad was getting all of his Raleigh products up together to go make a sale, and he said, "Who's been in this cough syrup? It's opened." And of course, I had to tell him I had been in it. And he was so worried about me. He said, "You're going to have to go throw up because he was so afraid that I was going to be poisoned." But that was just one thing I remember. I was always getting into mischievousness. But anyway, that was just one of the silly things that I did when I was a little girl. And I remember my dad, he also put up billboard posters with a sticky glue, this real sticky glue stuff in this bucket. And he would dip his wand down in there and roll the glue up there on the big, huge boards that people see from the highway. And I watched my dad put them posters up. The poster was folded in so many neat sections, and then he just rolled it out and put it up there. It was amazing, all the different things that he could do. But also, I remember one day when we were getting in the back of my dad's truck and we were going to go fishing or somewhere, I had gotten a big, huge bruise on my leg. Like, it was huge. And my dad goes, "Honey, what happened to you? What happened to your leg?" And I told him that I had bumped it days prior on his truck. And he was so kind and so concerned and worried about my leg. But I also, randomly just telling you different things about my dad. My dad had a hard time teaching me the difference between a nickel and dime. We were doing math, and the teachers, of course, they would tell you what you were missing or not getting. And Daddy goes, "Okay, which is the most money, a nickel or a dime?" I'd say, "The nickel." And he'd shake his head. He tried to be patient. And he'd go, "No, the dime." And he would ask me over and over, "Which is the most money?" I'd say, "The nickel." And he would say, "Nope, that's not right." And he goes, "Why do you keep thinking it's more money?" I said, "Because the nickel's bigger and the dime's smaller." Because I thought, well, a quarter's bigger and that's more money, so the nickel's got to be more money than the dime. It was funny. And of course, I had a hard time learning how to tell time, and I think maybe tying my shoes also. But my daddy also worked at Sky City, and it was a place kind of like Rose's or Walmart today. And my dad cleaned the floors. He buffed the floors, and they always looked so clean, as if you could see your reflection in the floor. And I was so proud of him. He got me a little job working in the snack bar. And I had a really hard time back there trying to get that grill clean. Um, I couldn't get it scrubbed clean enough. And my dad loved me so much that he came back there and helped clean that grill so I wouldn't get fired. But he was always looking out after us kids. And then I remember when he got a job at Broughton Hospital as a steam plant supervisor, and he was awarded an award for his excellence of duty there when he worked there. And he retired there, and he had enough vacation time built up, um, almost a year's worth of vacation time built up, and um, I remember one time when I was a little girl, I found a baby bird that had been hurt outside. And my mom and dad, they come out there, my dad come out there and got it and put it in a little jar and gave it some banana and a fly. And that night, to behold, it was not a baby bird, it was a bat. And I remember hearing my dad say, as I was laying in the bed, he said, "She's going to be awful sad by morning because it has died." But I didn't know it was a bat, but just the love of a father. And I remember when I was a little girl, it was really cold, and I remember him bringing in my little dog into our basement so it wouldn't freeze. Um, and I remember one lady in the grocery store made my dad upset because she told my dad that he carried me like a sack of taters. And he replied back to her gently, "This is my sack of taters." A lot of times I worked long hours on my jobs after I'd get out of school, and my dad, or even a little bit later on when I started driving, he would worry about me and he would come and check on me and make sure that I was okay. My curfew when I dated was 10:30, and my dad would flicker the light porch on and off if I wasn't in by 10:30. And he didn't much like the dating scene for me. He was very protective father and strict in some ways, but he was very loving too. And he worked so hard for the family. Um, one time my dad had surgery and he had gotten very sick. And when he went in to do surgery, they were actually getting ready to go do a different surgery on him and operate on him and going to do surgery on something other than what he was getting ready to have done. My dad was a short man with a very strong, deep voice, and he had a lot of muscles. I remember when we were little, he would put his finger in his mouth and pretend like he blowed up the muscles in his arm. And he would say, "There's a frog in there." And we would just laugh. My dad would take his fingers and touch them on the counter and move them, and it sounded like horses trotting in a race, and he could make them go fast and very slow. And the slower and softer he got, it's like the horses were running in a distance. Um, like I said, he always worked so hard for us, and he worked more than one job. And he would always come in and he'd say, "Let me get me a fast cup of coffee," and he would go and do another job. Um, I remember one time he said that we were low on money and low on food, and he was worried about what we were going to do. And he said in the middle of the evening or night, there was a knock on the door, and a man come and said, "How much do you want for the car?" He paid my dad cash money, and the man drove away in the car, and Daddy said he never saw him again. And Daddy said he really believed it was an angel sent from God um, to help. I remember one time my cow gave birth to a baby calf, and it was like in the cold of the winter, and the calf had died. And my dad tried to do everything humanly possible to save the calf, and I watched as he tried to do everything to save this little calf. He had tender heart and feelings, and I always remembered my dad would go out in the yard and cut my mom a beautiful rose from her rose bushes. And he also would buy her candy bar. Her favorite candy bar was Milky Ways. And he also would go get like seafood platters when they had seafood places up here that were so good, and the seafood come in boxes. And he would go get us one, but he would get my mom one. But he also would treat my mom with KFC chicken. Also, later on in years after my dad retired from his job, he never stopped. He kept on working, and he got a job at being a custodian at our church for many years after retirement. And he did a really good job there. He took pride in his work. My dad could sing very deep bass when he would sing, and my dad's hands started hurting him really bad later on in his life, and he did end up with he ended up getting Parkinson's, and he could not see well or hear at all. In his last days, he would always say, "Just come by to see me and give old Paul a hug." He had blue eyes and dark hair when he was young. He was dark skinned due to outside work. When he was little, he had rheumatic fever, and my dad was unable to go to school, but he never let it stop him from learning all that he needed to in life. When he was little, he had a dog he called Brownie, and it was so funny because me and my sister and brother, we always kid with my dad because he always had his deep voice. But when we would ask him, we always said, "Dad, what was your little dog's name?" He'd go, "Brownie." And when he said the word Brownie, he sounded like a little kid, like he was a little boy again. It was so precious. My dad, he ate tons of sandwiches when he worked on a job. Me and my sister, we would take turns making um, sandwiches for my dad. And Dad said he could always recognize when I made the sandwiches and when my sister did. Because he said hers were perfected and thinned and laid out perfectly, and mine was a big glop. I always gave him real thick sandwiches with a lot of meat or toppings on top. Oh. Also, my dad, he drinks coffee. That was one of his favorite drinks. And I remember when my dad told me when my mom passed away with an aneurysm, that very morning, my dad told me, and it helped me to just know how much I miss and love my mom. But she said, "Donna needs to take care of herself." And that made me know just how much my dad wanted me to know that my mom loved me. Um, my dad always hung a little picture of my mom on his lamp shade beside of his chair in the living room, and he talked to her daily after her passing. My dad preferred tailored clothes, not baggy. My dad would, with his deep voice, I'm sure could have been a great bass singer in a quartet. He did not much care for beach whaled seals, for he found them to be lazy because he worked hard for his family. But those are some memories of my dad, and I remember when he passed away, how hard it was for me and my sister and brother and his grandchildren. But my dad will always be remembered as a faithful man of God. God, he loved his family, he never met a stranger, and he was nice to everybody. And I remember when they asked him to pray at church, he would always say, "The one and truly, the almighty living God." And he prayed a deep prayer for God when he prayed. And I remember one time I was struggling with depression, and my dad went with me to the altar at church, and nobody knew that we were there. And he got on his knees and he prayed for me there because he cared and worried about me. That's what a loving earthly father is someone that cares about you throughout your life. And I can say that my father did, and these are great memories of him. And also, he set the perfect example of what a true father should be. And he listened to God, and he had a Bible, the Living Bible. And later on, I went to um, a book fair at Morganton Rec, and I found that exact same Bible that my dad had for $1. So my dad's Bible is weathered and worn where he read it cover to cover, and mine looks brand new because it's one that I've kept for a long time for memory of my dad. And like I said, God gave me a good earthly father, and Jesus in heaven is our heavenly Father. I hope y'all enjoyed these memories of my father, and his name was William Joseph Danner, and everybody called him Little Joe. Everyone have a great day, and I hope that you get to spend time with your father on Father's Day. God bless. Bye-bye.